Hey all, Rob here. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when future videos are out. And I would like to mention in this post some significant news for Disney, the owner of the Marvel property. And it goes here. It made the Hollywood Reporter. And why this is important is something like the Hollywood Reporter is mainstream news. And it's made some other mainstream news websites as well, what I'm going to report here. This is not just some comic book website news or something people are putting in a blog. This is significant that it hits a mainstream news site like the Hollywood Reporter. And it goes this: Marvel suing to keep rights to Avengers characters from copyright termination. Blockbuster lawsuits filed will decide future ownership of characters, including Iron Man and Spider-Man. Now it's like Marvel is, I should say Disney, is like really countersuing to hold on to full control of Avengers characters. What I'm going to read now is some stuff from the article I'm reading, but also it'll go into my opinion as well, so it's going to be a mix. They're suing to hold on to full control of characters including Iron Man, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Ant-Man, Hawkeye, Black Widow, Falcon, Thor, and others. The complaints come against the heirs of some late great comic book geniuses, including Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, Gene Colan. The suit, meaning the Disney side, the suit seeks declaratory relief that these blockbuster characters are ineligible for copyright termination as works made for hire. If Marvel loses, Disney would have to share ownership of characters worth billions. You see, this is the complaint, people. These mega corporations, no matter how rich they are greedy. Let's admit it. But how fair is it that, let's be honest, if you really look into the history of the comic books, it's probably one of the most screwed up businesses of all in terms of you creating something and who owns it. You know, in books, you don't see like Stephen King or J.K. Rowling get shady deals. With books, you get a fairer deal. In music, if you make the music or you write it, you get a much better deal. In other forms of entertainment, in Hollywood, if you're an actor, if you're a director, if you're a writer, you get much better deals. But if you made comic books and you're a writer or an artist, you got probably some of the worst deals of any creative industry. Straight up. How the heck do you make $1 billion property and you get almost nothing? Virtually nothing. I remember, what was it? I just saw a story I had published a couple of weeks ago where the creators of The Winter Soldier couldn't even get to see the movie until Sebastian Stan, the actor, found out and brought them to the premiere or whatever. They made the Winter Soldier character, people, and you can't even get an invite to the premiere? And the actor playing the character had to pull strings to get you inside. These billion-dollar creations, and look how significant the Winter Soldier has been in the MCU. To be honest, he's been a driving focus of many of the movies, and many of the best movies at that. And so you make a character, you get almost nothing. So here we go. Back to it. In August, the administrators of the Ditko estate filed a notice of termination on Spider-Man which first appeared in comic book form in 1962. Under the termination provisions of copyright law, authors or their heirs can reclaim rights once granted to publishers after waiting a statutory set period of time according to the termination notice. Marvel would have to give up Ditko's rights to its iconic character in June of 2023. Marvel is facing other termination notices. For example, Larry Lieber, who worked at Marvel as a writer, filed termination notices over creations in May. And Larry Lieber had a hand in, I believe it was Ant-Man, as well as possibly Thor, Iron Man. Again, I don't have the books on hand to look it up. So, the heirs of comic book creators, including, oddly enough, Don Rico for Black Widow, because he was the writer of the first appearance, are being represented by Mark Tobinoff, who once famously represented the Superman creators in an unsuccessful termination against DC. It's funny, this guy Mark Tobinoff, I don't know if he's a good or bad guy, because he is the lawyer who fought for the Superman creators, but he also had a hand in the pie that if they had won, he would have got a significant amount of money. So, you know, it's like, as a lawyer, I think this Mark guy, Tobinoff, he's kind of shady as well. He's not exactly a white hat, I wouldn't say. On the Superman stuff, the DC lawyers did some shady tactics, basically, and it helped them win the case. That's just my view on it, by the way. I'm no lawyer. Also, it says, clarified that Disney is only facing the loss of full ownership, meaning they would still be owners, but they would have to share or come to an agreement. And let's be honest, people, this is how I see these cases settling. Again, just my opinion, not a legal expert. Disney has the highest paid lawyers money could buy, and they will do any tactic, legal or shady, to make sure they pay nothing. So what will eventually happen is, when all is said and done, there will be some settlement, probably, that you cannot talk about how much you got, you know, behind the scenes, cannot discuss it. There'll be some payout of millions, maybe tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and say something like, you know, this case is settled, never bring it up in court again, case is closed. That's what's going to happen. Spider-Man, Ant-Man, Black Widow, Doctor Strange, and others will no longer ever be under Disney control, or that they can't use it or publish comics or movies or anything again. Nah, get real. A settlement will happen eventually, you know, and meanwhile the lawyers will fight it out using whatever tactics, legal or shady, to get their point across. But this is also, before I close this video, this is why Marvel and DC cannot grow anymore. Because to work at Marvel and DC, you need new characters to have the life force of innovation, of energy. All of these characters and properties are 50 to 80 years old. I mean, let's be honest. Deadpool and Venom are probably some of the most recent hot properties in the movies, but they're about 30 years old. These are not fresh characters anymore. And that's probably like the hottest new characters they have. Carnage is also about 30 years old. Spawn is about 30 years old as well. Okay, that's an image, but you see, when you think about it, how many hot new characters have appeared in the last 5 or 10 years? There's not many. And the truth is, you're not going to get many, because if you're a creator, if you have that energy, if you were like a Jack Kirby or a Steve Ditko, if you have that creative energy to make dozens of characters, heroes and villains, why the heck would you give it to Marvel and DC? Why? so that they could have ownership and tell you how to portray the character, so that they can make billions and not you. Think about Image. Think about Robert Kirkman, the creator of The Walking Dead. It's never discussed his finances, but this guy is a multi-millionaire. The Walking Dead property, the TV show, the merchandise and everything, and Kirkman is the owner. He's a multi-millionaire, okay, people? He never talks about how much he makes, but this guy is set for life. And then he has the Invincible property, animation, toys, and merchandise. That's just more millions. Why work for Marvel or DC with your original creations when you're going to get a pittance even now? When you just publish it yourself, publish it in Image, own the copyright, and take your chances. You could always sell it to another company. And without new characters, without that creative energy, Marvel and DC are just relying on the energy of old characters that are no longer fresh, no longer innovative. Or once in a while you get a creator like a Frank Miller to reinvent Daredevil. But other than that, these characters are old and they're not going anywhere. But where's the new energy, the freshness in comic books? And you're not going to get like a Silver Age at Marvel again, or a Golden Age of new characters at DC again. It's not going to happen. Because if you're a creator, why would you want to go through these legal battles that I'm mentioning in this video? Why would you want to make something that you have no ownership in, and you get very little compensation compared to other media? Like I said, you might as well write a book, be a director, a script writer, write some music. You'll get a far better deal financially than making a comic book character. That's just the straight up truth. And I'm talking about a comic book character for the big two. Just own your stuff, make the stuff you own. So it's a far better deal than working for Marvel or DC. They have the old energy. The new energy of fresh ideas and new characters, they will be denied, because when creators see stories like this, it's like it makes no sense to give your new stuff or your best stuff to Marvel or DC. And at the same time, that's why they cannot grow as a company. They cannot expand with a new Silver Age or a new Golden Age, because they don't have the creative people who would want to work for them anymore. That's what it's about. I would like to mention another thing. This is regard to Steve Ditko, the co-creator of Spider-Man. And this is the odd thing, that he, career-wise, distanced himself from the character and pretty much had, from the letters and just the stories I've heard, that, he really wanted nothing to do with Spider-Man anymore, and that he had moved on with his life beyond the character. Basically had no interest in it. And I think he turned down any compensation for the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. He didn't want any interest in it. And I always, kind of find it funny that creator or co-creator is not going to fight for the cause when he was alive, that he was not going to fight for the cause to get financial compensation for what he made. It's like, if you're not going to fight for the cause yourself, how could you expect anyone else to pick up the baton and fight for your cause when you wouldn't fight for the cause yourself? It's just that odd thing that if you're not going to fight for your rights when he was alive, why should others fight for you? He'd moved on. He didn't care about the character anymore, Spider-Man or Doctor Strange. That was decades behind him already at that point. But at the same time, it's better the family benefit than anyone else. Why not? And according to this legal right, the family heirs could benefit. They have a right to a claim. But I always favor the creator themselves getting the money than a family member who had nothing to do with it. That's just my personal view and opinion, that it should benefit the person itself that made it than a family member who had nothing to do with it. That's just me, how I feel about those type of situations. But again, it's better that the family gets something than a mega corporation. So despite all this copyright, litigation, termination of rights, whatever, in the end it will be settlement. It will be done behind closed doors. That's how I see it happening. But again, if they have the legal right, the families, to reclaim some of these character rights, absolutely, why not? If I was in that situation, I would absolutely do the same thing. If it's your legal right by law. And so that's it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Stay safe, my friends, and I will talk to you later.